Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Road to Paris webinar. We are very excited to kick things off here. My name is Peter Sargent. I am the campaigns director with the Climate Reality Project. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us today. We have a bunch of exciting things to discuss here regarding the Road to Paris and our Iowa training. So to kick things off, I'm going to give a brief overview about the Road to Paris and the campaign. Then Mario Molina, the director of the Climate Reality Leadership Corps, will join me to discuss the Climate Reality Leadership Corps itself and give an overview there. And then we have a couple of our Climate Reality leaders who have joined us for a panel discussion with several project questions. Carol, Terry, and Paul, they will introduce themselves at that point. And then we have some questions, some time for Q&A, and I'll be taking the best questions, or set of questions rather, from the webinar itself and asking them of our panelists. And then we will be wrapping up. So we have an hour scheduled, and I think that we should be able to crank through everything in that amount of time. So without further ado, let me dive into the Road to Paris. So let me start by talking about how we got here. So when I say Road to Paris, what I mean is road to the UNFCCC, UN Framework Convention for Climate Change, at the Conference of the Parties, or COP21 as it's called. So how we got here is in Rio in 1992, the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change was created. And in 1997, the Kyoto Protocol was adopted with Annex 1 versus non-Annex 1 put into practice with regards to various kinds of countries that the world was broken down into. In 2009, as many of us remember, Copenhagen failed to replace the Kyoto Protocol. And now, leading up to COP21, we've had a couple of steps along the road, one in 2011 with a new mandate to rewrite the agreement by 2015 for 2020, and then with COP19 in 2013, with parties to decide to submit their own contributions during 2015 with what's called an INDC, or Intended Nationally Determined Contribution. This is a bottom-up strategy for creating the contributions that each country will make for greenhouse gas reductions. So that's how we got here. Why we're hopeful for Paris, there are a couple of key things for why we were hopeful. First is coming out of Lima, all governments are signing on to address climate change. We have unprecedented participation from civil society, labor, business, obviously the environmental community, and the INDC, or Intended Nationally Determined Contribution, will be presented in 2015. We've already seen a couple of the INDCs come out. Mexico and the US are notable. The fact that it is bottom-up means that each country is expected to come to Paris with a commitment for their greenhouse gas reductions. And what do we need in Paris collectively? We need ambitious commitments by countries and a way for them to continually submit and review. Now, that's critical. We are very hopeful for Paris because we know it's going to be the first step in a continued effort to have a global agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But it's going to be the first time that we have commitments from each country, but it's critical that we have a strategic and methodical review period so that we can ratchet up those commitments for greenhouse gas reductions. We need a strong, durable agreement that holds parties responsible, and we need a strong, long-term goal that sends signals to the private sector and industry. And we also need to have some signal on finance. But above all, we have all the solutions to meet all the challenges. Now, this is our moment. The United States and China are already showing necessary leadership with the bilateral commitment, and again with the U.S. and its INDC released last week. The People's Climate March shows that the global political will exists, and major emitters are working to address climate change together. And we also have renewable technologies and costs that are poised for scale. Now, where we're going along the road to Paris, it starts domestically with the Climate Reality Leadership Corps training in Iowa. And then in June, we have the Live Earth Road to Paris concerts. Those are going to be concerts held on every continent around the globe, uniting a billion voices behind one message to take climate action now. Then in July, we have a Climate Reality Leadership Corps training in Canada. In September, another training in Miami. And then in December, the COP21 meetings in Paris, starting on November 30th, 2015, and going to December 11th. We also have on-the-ground country campaigns in 8 strategic countries, as well as a presence in several others. And the goal of those campaigns is for the leaders of China, the Philippines, India, Brazil, Australia, South Africa, Canada, and the United States to commit to reduce their emissions at the 2015 UNFCCC meeting in Paris. The strategy is to combine field organizing, online organizing, coalition building, lobbying, and earned media to culminate with international events such as the International Day of Action, the Climate Reality Leadership Corps trainings, Live Earth, 24 Hours of Reality, to build the groundswell of pressure that it will take to make decision makers in each country agree to strong commitments to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. The way in which we will work to achieve that goal and the way that we have worked thus far, we're similar to the bottom-up strategy of the INDC. We have a bottom-up strategy developing local campaign strategies that are aimed at strong commitments in each country. We have branch managers who are trained climate leaders rather, in each of the countries developing their campaigns. We are supporting those branches through our trainings and through helping to mobilize leaders to take action, and building a strong partnership network in each country to help raise awareness, and then gathering hundreds of millions of signatures in support of that strong agreement through the Live Earth Road to Paris pledge. A critical role is the Climate Reality Leadership Corps, and the single best action you can take is to attend one of the Climate Reality Leadership Corps trainings. So again, I strongly encourage you to register for Iowa and to attend that training. But to tell you more about the Climate Reality Leadership Corps itself, I want to introduce Mario Molina.
Thank you, Peter. Great overview. I appreciate everyone taking the time out of their busy days on a weekday to join us for this webinar, and I hope to see all of you at one of our upcoming Climate Reality Leadership Corps trainings. So the Climate Reality Leadership Corps was started by former Vice President and Nobel laureate Al Gore following the release of his award-winning movie, An Inconvenient Truth. The goal of the Corps was to spread awareness about the climate crisis and its solutions and the urgency to take action on it. So it started by Mr. Gore himself training a small group of climate reality leaders, about 200 of them, in his barn in Nashville back in 2006. Since then, the Corps has grown to over 7,000 climate reality leaders representing 125 countries in all 5 continents. And the mission of the Corps has also grown to include not only spreading the message and the presentation of encompassing an inconvenient truth, but also to maximize the potential of the great leaders that join our trainings. So what we have realized is that people who join our trainings are not ordinary people. They are extraordinary people who are leaders in their own right. And our mission is to take these great leaders, like yourselves, many of you on this phone call, and turn you into climate reality leaders. The difference being that we will provide information on the science, the solutions, best practices in communications and organizing, as well as a full day and a half with Mr. Gore himself, where he will go through his slide presentation and train everyone who attends on how to deliver that slide presentation to their audiences. So, as I mentioned, and how this ties into the road to Paris is that we have over 7,000 trained climate reality leaders in 125 countries, including all 8 of which are crucial in order to move forward with the binding agreement in Paris. So we will be recruiting everyone who attends any of these trainings to join us in our Road to Paris campaign. And here in the U.S. specifically, we are going to be asking for special support for the EPA carbon rules and other campaigns that we'll be rolling out over the course of the next few months. Now, after being trained, what is it that we ask climate reality leaders to do, and who are climate reality leaders? So, to start off with, we see ourselves as conveners and facilitators for this movement, bringing together people from all walks of life across all sectors of society, from all countries. And what we have realized is that climate reality leaders will go out many times and start their very own initiatives, realizing that they have a particular message they want to deliver, a particular constituency that they can reach, actions that they want to start. And the Climate Reality Leadership Corps has become almost an incubator for great action on climate around the world. All of the logos that you see on your screen right now have climate reality leaders in leadership positions within those organizations and companies, or they have been started by climate reality leaders. And this is just a small sampling of hundreds of initiatives that have been started by climate leaders. In addition, climate reality leaders are messengers. From the dining room table and their families, to social gatherings, to small showings of the presentation when first getting started, all the way through to high-profile events such as the UNCCC itself, United Nations conferences on climate change across multiple sectors. We recently had someone presenting in front of C-suite individuals from Adobe. Climate reality leaders are also organizers. During the People's Climate March last year, we put out a call to our climate leaders to come and support strong binding commitments on climate change at the march in New York. And not only did we have amazing turnout domestically, we actually had several climate reality leaders travel from as far away as Africa to join the movement. And so not only are climate reality leaders trained and gain skills and expertise and knowledge, you will join a very powerful network of change agents from all over the world who are all working for the same cause, under the same umbrella and message, with the banner of the Climate Reality Project and obviously our founder, Vice President Gore. Climate reality leaders range, as I said, not only across sector and demographic, but they also range in age. And here we have one of our youngest climate reality leaders testifying in front of an EPA hearing with his mentor, Susan Pacheco, who is also our climate leader and featured on our website. You can check out her video on the website about the importance of the EPA rule. So we're spreading the message, we are incubating action and initiatives, and we are advocating for change in front of influencers and decision makers. So our goals for this year, and what we hope that everyone on this panel and attending this webinar will help us accomplish, is first, we need the people. We need, in order to change everything, we will need everyone, and that includes all of you and your networks. So we would like to train 3,000 new climate reality leaders this year. The immediate next opportunity being in Iowa, May 5th through the 8th. We encourage you to check out the website, where we hope to train 1,200 to 1,500 climate leaders. Next is we will engage and educate new audiences about the climate crisis and inspire them to take action. After being trained, you will become climate reality ambassadors, armed with both the tools and the knowledge to spread the message wide and far, and amplify the actions that you're already taking through the network that we have. And third, we will ask you to mobilize at different times over the course of the next few months. We will harness the collective power of this organization and the movement as a whole to ensure that political leaders know that the will exists for a strong agreement at the COP21 negotiations in Paris at the end of this year. So it's now my pleasure to introduce three dear friends and long-standing climate reality leaders to speak about their own experience. So with that, I will turn it over to Carol, Terry, and Paul. Thank you so very much for joining. The three of you are some of our superstars in this program, and I don't think that there is a better voice to speak to the power of the program and the influence that you can have in your communities than the three of you. So I'll pass it on to Carol. Thank you so much.
Great. This is Peter again. I just want to jump in and ask all the climate leaders to introduce themselves to launch into the panel discussion.
Okay, hi, my name is Carol LeBlanc. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia, and I'm an IT project manager for the federal government, and I trained in the Chicago 2013 session.
Hi, I'm Terry Gallagher. I'm what's known as a public theologian. That's a minister without portfolio. I trained in the San Francisco training back in 2012, and I'm based out of the Chicago area.
Hi there. I'm Paul Beaton. I live near Cedar Rapids, where the next training is going to be. I repurposed in 2009, and I currently work in farming, in warehouse work, and I also write for the local newspaper. I attended the Chicago training in 2013.
Excellent. So my first question, I'm curious to know what inspired you to become a climate reality leader?
For me, it was back in 2012. I don't know if you remember, Colorado was experiencing some pretty devastating wildfires, and they were unprecedented in scale. And one of them, the Waldo Canyon fire, it spread into Colorado Springs. And I was listening to the news, and I heard them say it was now in the Mountain Shadows neighborhood. And I nearly fell over. I was like, that's a place I lived. I once lived there in Mountain Shadows. And sure enough, the fire had spread into my old neighborhood and onto the street where I had lived. And most of my former neighbors lost their homes. They were all burned to the ground. And it was at that moment that I realized that climate change was here now. It was impacting us now. It's not down the road, not some future distant event. It was here and now. And I was familiar with the Climate Reality Project, so when I saw the call for applicants, I applied and was accepted.
This is Terry. For me, I had already come to the conclusion that the climate crisis posed a deep peril to my grandkids. And so I was becoming very active in raising awareness for this, but I was looking for a resource. I was looking for an in-depth resource that not only talked about the science, but also talked about the people problem and the crisis that was causing the pain to the people around the world. And I came across the common reality.
2 people on this webinar. It's cool.
This is Paul, and for me, it's two severe weather events that we had here in Iowa. The first was the 2008 flood, which put much of downtown Cedar Rapids underwater. The second was the 2012 drought, which was one of the driest and most intense that we have seen. And for me, the Climate Reality Leadership Corps gave me a structure and the information I needed to work to connect the dots between extreme weather and what people can do.
Great. And what was your experience at the training?
Well, it's hard to put into words how inspiring it is to be in a forum with people from all walks of life and from all different countries, all over the world, and you're all there for a common purpose. It's really inspiring. I can't think of any other topic that crosses cultures like this one does. Excuse me. And the training really opened my eyes to what a global impact climate change is having. And that was something I wasn't previously as aware of as I was after the training.
Thank you. We did have a bit of background noise, so if you are not speaking, would you please mute your phones? Great. Okay, so Carol, this is for you. I'm curious, what was one of the biggest challenges you faced in your experience, and what did you do to overcome it?
Well, I'll tell you, after I was accepted into the Corps, before the training, I got really scared. I was like, what am I doing? Am I crazy? This is, I was like, what am I wishing for here? I don't have a science background. I'm not an environmentalist. I've never even been camping. So this was totally out of my comfort zone. But when I got there, the training, I had to remind myself that this was training and I was going there to learn. And I didn't have to go there with all the answers. I was going to come out with the answers. So I consoled myself and got over my fear and went there, and I did learn. And once I was there, reaching out with the others, and I found I wasn't alone in feeling that way, that, you know, this subject is very complex and there's a lot to learn. But the training was organized in a way, the slideshow presentation is organized in it tells a story, and it's easy to break down into chunks so you can learn it. So I was relieved once I went, and I was glad I got over that fear.
Thank you. And Terry, this is for you. How have you reached out to your particular community, and how has the response been?
My particular communities, well, I present both to any group that will have me. I'm specifically focused on faith-based organizations. And so I've reached out to them in every way that I can. And so I did land mail campaigns, I've done electronic campaigns, and I've done phone calls. And what I found actually is the best thing that works is one-on-one sit-downs with coffee, you know, with people who might be interested in hosting a presentation, that they really want to connect with you one-on-one to see who you are and what you're about. And when you make that connection, then it's a lot easier to get invited in to do the presentation.
Excellent. And now, Paul, this is for you. I'm curious, what awareness of climate change are you seeing in Iowa, and what has been the response to the climate message and the climate reality leaders training?
Well, Iowans experience the effects of climate change, but many of them don't connect the dots with its causes. And the example I would use is the 2012 drought. We understood from the climate reality leadership training about the hydrologic cycle, and the droughts get made worse as a result of climate change. And so the governor called a meeting in Mount Pleasant. It was so bad, and he brought in all the agricultural leaders, and each one of them explained what the impact of this extreme drought was, yet no one mentioned the words climate change during the entire presentation. And that, to me, is where I focus my work, is on raising the awareness to help people connect the dots between extreme weather and climate change.
And lastly, for everybody, what have you done with your training, and how has becoming a climate reality leader changed your life?
Well, I've done things that I never pictured myself doing before I was in climate reality. For one, I spoke at an EPA hearing about clean air regulations. I've talked with complete strangers about solving the climate crisis, and through that I found that many people are concerned, but they didn't think they could help. And in those cases, I point them to resources to help them get started. I'm also trying to walk the talk. My husband and I are working on upgrading the power in our garage because I'm going to get an electric car. So being part of climate reality has given me a sense of purpose, and I feel like I'm part of a collective voice. And it gives me hope that we're going to solve the problem.
Okay, this is Terry. After the training in San Francisco, I later attended the training in Chicago and became a mentor for other climate reality leaders, and I will do that again in Iowa. And so if I see you there, maybe perhaps I'll be able to work with you as a mentor after the program. But besides that, I've put on about 70 presentations from crowds of 400 to crowds of 2 individuals. I'm willing to talk anyway. I also have advocated up in Washington, D.C. on a number of occasions, as well as walked along with 400,000 new friends in New York City a few months back.
This is Paul, and the tools that I acquired by receiving the training in Chicago helped me to improve all of my interactions with people regarding the impact of climate change on every day. My work has included a number of presentations throughout Iowa, but importantly, I met a group of Iowans at the training who have kept in touch with and have been able to develop a program that is most of the state involved in it. The Climate Reality Leadership Course training provided clarity for me.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us for the panel discussion. I'm going to have the last question for Mario, and that is particularly, what part will the new climate reality leaders play in the road to Paris?
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you so much, Terry, Paul, and Carol. Climate reality leaders are going to be integral to the development of the Road to Paris campaign. As Peter mentioned earlier, this effort worldwide is a bottom-up effort. Every country is submitting a nationally determined contribution to the overall goal of keeping warming under 2 degrees Celsius. That means that we need to start from the bottom up. And that means that we need to all come together and build coalitions. So one of the greater assets that we have and that develops and grows exponentially with every training is the vast network and the potential for building coalitions across unexpected partners. We will be relying on climate reality leaders throughout the world, and especially here in the U.S. and in the lead up, obviously, to a very important year in the U.S. in 2016, to build coalitions to raise the profile of the climate crisis issue in advance of the 2016 elections. That will follow grassroots tactics. We will implement grassroots tactics to do a lot of this, including petitions, phone calls, letters to the editor, but also raising the profile, in order to raise the profile, not only to put pressure on the decision makers and to raise support, but to raise the profile of the issue with the public in general. We will be asking climate reality leaders to write letters to the editor, to write op-eds, to attend press conferences, to host press conferences, and providing a lot of the support, templates, trainings, and follow-up opportunities after the training to do so. We will also ask climate reality leaders to get engaged in events. We realize that not every ask fits every disposition, but we need everyone, and there are many ways to get involved. Another way to get involved is organizing events. So, for example, with the Live Earth concerts coming up, we will be organizing watch parties for people to spread awareness about the fact that there is even such a thing as a conference of the parties happening in December. For many of us in the movement, for many of us in the environmental space, that is as clear as the sun rising in the morning, but believe it or not, this is not top of mind for the general public. And we are doing everything that we can to let the world know that this is an important year and that this is an important negotiation, and we need a strong agreement come out. So events to raise awareness will be a key part of what we ask climate reality leaders to do. And obviously we will all continue to rely on people like Carol and Paul and Terry to help us grow this movement and to help us mentor other climate reality leaders at upcoming trainings. So we will have several other trainings over the course of the next year and continue to next year. And as we grow the core, we also need to grow the body of mentors and people who are dedicated to amplifying the message and bringing others along. So all of these are different ways in which people can get involved, and trained climate reality leaders have opportunities to get involved depending on their schedules, their ability, their constituencies, and their dispositions. So there is always something that we can do. So thank you so very much for your time. And do you have any questions?
So I'm going to take a couple of questions that have come in. Unfortunately, due to time, we only have the ability to ask 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll be able to follow up individually as time goes on. So the first question, it's a two-part question, and it is for Mario. So the first question is, do I need to be a trainer? Do I need to go to a training to be a climate reality leader? And the second question is, will Al Gore be at the trainings?
Thank you. So the question is, do I need to be at a training to attend to become a climate reality leader? Yes, the answer is yes. We have other opportunities for people who do not attend a leadership core training to get involved. You can sign up through our website, and you'll get our regular emails, kind of how you found out about this webinar likely. But in order to have access to the presentation and be a certified climate reality leader, you do need to attend all 3 days of one of our trainings. Now, part of the reason that it's a requirement is the answer to your second question, and that is yes. Former Vice President Gore conducts these trainings himself. He is there for a full day and a half, in which not only does he go over the current status of his presentation, the most updated version of the presentation that he himself is delivering across multiple platforms around the world, but then he takes a full day, 8 to 9 hours, in which he will describe exactly how to deliver that very same presentation. What is the science behind it? What is the reasoning behind it? What are the communications best practices that have been chosen for particular images or messages embedded in the presentation? And for this particular training, we also think that his schedule will allow for him to be there on the 3rd day of the training as well. So this is very much a project of our chairman, and he is personally involved with every one of these events.
Great. Well, given the fact that it's already 5 minutes past when we said we would wrap up, I'm going to wrap up right now. But again, thank you to everybody who joined, particularly to Mario and to our panelists, Carol, Terry, and Paul, and then to everybody who joined online. I just would like to make one last plug again. We have a ton of momentum building up to the Conference of the Parties, COP21 in Paris. This is our moment to tackle this problem globally, and the first step for that is getting trained to be a climate reality leader. So I hope that I see all of you in Iowa, and that we get to work together as we build momentum for that global agreement. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you for joining. Hope to see you in Iowa.